You know that feeling when you're almost done with something, and instead of feeling relieved, you feel strangely tense. Maybe it's a work project that's 90% finished. Maybe it's a book with 30 pages left. Maybe it's a task you've been putting off all week, and now that it's nearly complete, you feel this odd resistance pulling you back. It doesn't make logical sense. You're so close, but something inside you just doesn't settle. This isn't about being lazy. It isn't about lacking willpower or not caring enough. What you're experiencing is a real psychological pattern, and it has more to do with how your brain is structured than how disciplined you are as a person. Most people assume that the closer you get to finishing something, the better you should feel. Progress equals comfort. Completion equals relief. That's the logical version of how motivation works. But the mind doesn't always follow logic, and the gap between almost done and actually done is one of the strangest and least talked about spaces in everyday psychology. Think about the last time you were nearly finished with something significant. A presentation due the next morning, a long email you'd been drafting for an hour, a cleaning task that was almost complete. There's often a moment, right near the end, where the energy doesn't build the way you'd expect. Instead, it shifts. Something feels unfinished in a way that feels heavier than when you hadn't started at all. The common explanation for this is procrastination, or perfectionism, or fear of failure. And while those things are real, they don't fully explain what happens to people who aren't perfectionists, who aren't avoiding anything, who genuinely want to be done. The discomfort of being almost done is something different, and understanding it starts with how the brain processes incompletion itself. Research in psychology has shown for decades that the human mind handles unfinished tasks differently than finished ones. When something is complete, the brain essentially files it away. It stops devoting background attention to it. But when something is left incomplete, even partially, the mind continues to hold it open. It keeps a kind of mental tab running. This phenomenon, observed consistently in research settings, shows that people actually remember interrupted or unfinished tasks more vividly than completed ones. The brain treats incompletion as a signal that something still needs attention. This makes sense from a survival and efficiency standpoint. Your mind is built to follow through, to close loops, to resolve what it started. But here's what that creates in practice. The closer you are to finishing something, the more your brain has invested in that open loop. The task has been running in the background for hours, maybe days. And the final stretch is where all of that accumulated mental holding finally has to resolve. That pressure doesn't feel like excitement for most people. It feels like tension. Consider what happens at work when you're finishing a report. The research is done. The structure is there. You just need to write the conclusion and format the last few sections. But that final hour often feels harder than the 3 hours before it. The task is so close to being resolved that your brain is already anticipating the closure. And that anticipation creates its own kind of strain. You're not in the middle anymore where everything feels open. You're at the edge, where the weight of completion is right there in front of you. The same thing happens with personal tasks. You've cleaned most of the apartment. One room is left. Instead of feeling momentum, you feel a dip. You sit down. You check your phone. The task hasn't gotten harder, but the feeling around it has changed. What's happening is that your brain is managing two things at once: the remaining effort required and the psychological shift that comes with actually closing something out. There's also something worth noting about identity and task completion. Research suggests that people often unconsciously associate an ongoing task with a kind of purpose or structure in their day. While something is in progress, it holds a place in your mental landscape. It gives shape to the hours. When you're about to finish it, part of your mind is already anticipating the absence of that structure. That's not dramatic. It's just how the brain accounts for what's coming next. This is especially visible in routines. People who are working toward a long-term goal, a degree, a project, a deadline, sometimes notice an unexpected flatness or restlessness in the days just before they finish. Not because they don't want to be done, but because being almost done means the structure around that thing is about to disappear. The mind hasn't fully prepared for that shift yet. The uncomfortable realization here is quiet but worth sitting with. The tension you feel near the end of something isn't a sign that you should stop, or that something is wrong with the task or with you. It's a sign that your brain is doing exactly what it's built to do. It's holding the loop open until you close it completely. It's managing the weight of imminent completion, and that weight, it turns out, is real. What this doesn't mean is that you'll always feel this way, or that finishing things is inherently uncomfortable. Many tasks end with genuine relief and satisfaction. The pattern is more visible in tasks that have taken significant time. required sustained attention, or carried some emotional weight. A quick errand doesn't produce this. A month-long project might. It also doesn't mean that the discomfort is a message to slow down or reconsider. The brain can generate friction near completion for entirely mechanical reasons that have nothing to do with whether the task is right for you or whether you want to finish it. The signal isn't always meaningful. Sometimes it's just the system doing its job in a way that creates an uncomfortable side effect. And it's worth saying clearly. This isn't something most people recognize in themselves, because the discomfort is easy to misread. It looks like distraction. It looks like avoidance. It looks like suddenly finding other things to do. From the outside, and even from the inside, it can seem like the person just doesn't want to finish. But the underlying experience is often simpler and more mechanical than that. The brain is at a threshold, managing more than it appears to be managing. There's a particular quality to the experience of being almost done that doesn't have a clean name in everyday language. It sits between the middle of something and the end of it, and it carries the weight of both. You're not exploring anymore. You're closing. And closing something, even something you want to be done with, requires a different kind of mental effort than continuing. If you've ever sat at your desk with one task left to complete, feeling oddly unable to just finish it, you were probably experiencing exactly this. Not a failure of motivation, not a character flaw, just a mind doing something very human in a moment that doesn't always feel comfortable. That's worth knowing. Not because knowing it changes what happens, but because understanding what's actually occurring is different from misreading it as a problem with yourself. The discomfort of almost done is real, and it's not yours alone.